Good morning, Paul here in my front garden, and I'm reading stories out of the Old Testament as we're going through the Old Testament, and we've come to one here in 2 Samuel in the NIV. It's a story where David hears about Saul's death, and I've got to point out it's slightly different to the same account of it that you see in 1 Chronicles 10:13, but it's a good story that we should pick up on and get an understanding of. From verse 1 of chapter 1. After the death of Saul, David returned from striking down the Amalekites and stayed in Ziklag 2 days. On the third day, a man arrived from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dust on his head. When he came to David, he fell to the ground to pay him honour. "Where have you come from?" David asked him. He answered, "I have escaped from the Israelite camp." "What happened?" David asked. "Tell me." "The men fled from the battle," he replied. "Many of them fell and died, and Saul and his son Jonathan are dead." Now, I must remember, Jonathan was a very close friend to David, so it's very sad news. Then David said to the young man who brought him the report, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead?" "Well," he said, "I happened to be on Mount Gilboa," the young man said, "and there was Saul leaning on his spear, with the chariots and their drivers in hot pursuit. When he turned around and saw me, he called out to me, and I said, 'What can I do?' He asked me, 'Who are you?' 'An Amalekite,' I answered. Then he said to me, 'Stand here by me and kill me. I'm in the throes of death, but I'm still alive.' So I stood beside him and killed him, because I knew that after he had fallen he could not survive. And I took the crown that was on his head and the band on his arm, and have brought them here to my Lord." Now, it's interesting, in the Chronicles account, Saul dies by suicide, falling on his sword. There's no mention of a third person in that account. Verse 11. Then David and all the men with him took hold of their clothes and tore them. They mourned and wept and fasted till evening for Saul and his son Jonathan, and for the army of the Lord and the nation of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. David said to the young man who brought him the report, "Where are you from?" He said, "I am a son of a foreigner, an Amalekite." And David asked him, "Why weren't you afraid to lift your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" And then David called one of his men and said, "Go, strike him down." So he struck him down, and he died. For David had said to him, "Your blood be on your own head. Your own mouth testified against you when you said, 'I killed the Lord's anointed.'" And that's a very sad ending for the messenger, who was really just helping Saul finish it off. Saul had committed suicide by falling on his sword, but he was still alive, and asked this young man to finish it off. But it does emphasise the fact that you don't touch the Lord's anointed. And that means your pastor or whatever. If he's anointed by the Lord, don't touch him, don't harm him, and do nothing to hurt the Lord's anointed. So there's an interesting account of Saul's death from 2 Samuel chapter 1. You get into the scriptures yourself and find out the truth, and let the scriptures get into you. Then go and tell someone else about it. We'll see you later. You have a great day. Bye for now.